Okay, so on this sheet, what we're doing is we're having our words where all of these are people. So they're all nouns, right? People, places, and things are nouns, right? So if you have a test question this week and it says, what part of speech are all these words? They're all nouns because they're all people, okay? OR and ER at the end of the word can mean a person who. If it is an English root word, we can just say a person who and whatever that word is. Let's look at the ones that are English words for 1 through 10, okay? Does anybody see an English word that has an OR or an ER added to one of those things? Haley. A doctor. Is that a person who docks? So that's, even though the word doctor is an English word, docked is not. So we won't do that one quite yet. Ben, which one of those words is an English word here? If we take that, say it again. Winner, a person who wins, right? So if we go to winner, that's going to be a person who wins. That's the first one. We're going to click there with our text box, and we're going to put the number 10 there. Okay, we have another one that's an English word, Dominic. Lawyer, a person who practices law. So we're going to find the one that says a person who practices law, and we're going to put a 9 there. Does everybody understand why we're numbering them the way we are? It's because it's the number of the word. Okay. Is there another one? Kinley. Actor, a person who acts. So actor is going to be a 4. Haley, what's another one? A writer, a person who writes. So that's going to be 5. Okay. Now, when we look at the other words, we have family members, father, mother, sister, brother. And then we also have doctor, author, that we're going to look at too. Let's do the family members first. A female sibling. What's that one, Maggie? A female sibling is a sibling is like a brother or a sister. So the female one is a sister, 6. And a male sibling is going to be, Alexa, a brother, which is there. And brother comes from the word frater, which means male sibling. Have you ever heard of a fraternity? In college, boys can join like a club, like a fraternity, where they live in that house and stuff. And girls join a sorority. So that comes, sister comes from the word soror, which means a female sibling. Yeah. Now, look at the next two. A person who takes care of you and a person who looks out for you. These come from the Old English maiden and fater. Fater, it sounds like fatter, doesn't it? And a person who takes care of you is going to be your mother. So that's going to be an 8. And a person who looks out for you is going to be your father, too. And that just comes from those ancient words, those Old English words. Okay? So when we look at this, I might be a little nerdy. I think it's cool to figure out where words come from. I think it's cool that says, oh, we got the word father because there was a word in Old English that meant a person who looks after you. I think that's kind of cool. Now, let's look at the word doctor and look at the word author. Doctor originally meant a teacher. Did y'all know that? So if you've ever heard of anybody getting a doctorate degree, they're able to teach it. They know it so well. So that's where we get it. But now we think of a physician, like someone that heals you. So where we have a person who teaches or heals, that's going to be a doctor, number 1. The next one says a person who increases or writes books. And this is cool too. There's a Latin word, audire, which means to make or to increase. Writers were seen as people that increase knowledge of the world. So they weren't just writers, they were increasers, and they increased the knowledge of the world. And that's how they got their name. So now we know that an author is someone who writes. It's kind of like a writer. But it came from someone who increased knowledge. That's where we got that word from. So again, it's just kind of a cool fact to look at those things. Dominic, did you have a question? When I was in college, I took Latin, and a whole bunch of it stuck in my head. So I just have a lot of that stuff. Yeah, so I thought it's just one of those cool things that you can kind of put a puzzle together. And I think one thing that I like about it is that even though I teach reading and writing, I'm very much a scientific math mind. My mind is more science and math. So when I look at reading things and I look at words, it's kind of like put them together in an analytical way, like you would like a math problem. So it's just the way my mind works. Yes, Alexa. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of English words that come from Latin and Greek. You're exactly right. All right, let's go to the next ones and let's see if we can find some of them that have English root words. Dominic, do you see one that's an English root word? A greeter, a person who greets. So you might have a greeter at your church or at your school. They welcome you, right? So a person who greets is going to be a greeter. That's number 18. How about a creator? Cambria, a creator must be a person who creates. A speaker is a person who does what, everybody? Speaks. These aren't too bad, are they, if they're English root words? A governor is a person who governs or rules, right? So it's a person who governs. They like make sure that all the laws are being obeyed. Governor, 14. Think about the Jamestown governor. How about a person who cleans? A cleaner. A person who cleans is a cleaner. Now, even though you may not know it, we have one more word that comes from an English word, and it's the word auditor. It's not senator. I bet a lot of people thought it was senator. Auditor. Audit means to check. So if someone audits your taxes, they check to make sure that they were right. So an auditor is someone who checks paperwork or math or your taxes. So an auditor is a person who checks. And that does have an English root word, audit. Now let's look at some of the ones that are a little bit harder. A proctor. When I give an SOL test, someone has to come in and make sure that I'm giving it right. They're called a proctor. So which of the definitions that are left over would be somebody that makes sure that I'm doing something right? What do you think, Ben? Actually, that's going to be something else. There's one more that talks about watching. Do you see it, Ben? Good, that's a proctor. 17, proctor. Now, let's talk about the one Ben just said. A person who watches the gate. The word Janus, Janus, is a Latin word that means gate. So we get the word janitor, which is like a custodian, because it's someone that watches the gate, make sure that people don't come in or out. It's kind of like the cell membrane. So the person who watches the gate or fixes things is going to be the janitor. 15. That's where we get that word. I talked about a person who makes speeches for a living when I was doing the earlier lesson. Do y'all remember what that's called? Haley? An orator. It comes from the Latin word ora, which means mouth. And the senator has such a cool thing. Senator comes from a word for old, senex. Why do you think that the word old got turned into senator? What do you think, Alexa? Say it again. The senior, someone that's older, yep. That's a good idea too. Actually, once you hit 42 years of age, you were automatically made a part of the Senate if you were not part of the military in ancient Rome. So they thought since you lived that many years, you must be wise, and you became a part of the Senate, which isn't a smart thing to do. But that's where we get it. We get the word senator from old man. Senex means old or old man. And Only the people that reached a certain age could be part of the Senate. And actually, they were automatically made a part of the Senate. And that's where we get the word senator. Now, you might say, well, Senate is a root word for senator. Kind of, but it actually comes from the word senex. So that's going to be that last one, senator. Okay. So it's kind of like a history lesson mixed in with a spelling lesson. Yes. Good. So for the bottom, we're just going to say a person who for each one of these things. So a walker, we're going to write a person who walks. I'm writing it big so you can see it. Now, a Quaker is a religious group. Y'all haven't done the colonies yet in history, have you? And talked about Quakers. Quakers were known in Pennsylvania. So Quakers were a group of religious people that actually would pray and they would quake or shake like an earthquake. So when they prayed, they said that they were filled with the Holy Spirit and their bodies would shake. So they became known as the Quakers because when they prayed, they'd shake. It's like their body would convulse. So a Quaker is a person who shakes or quakes like an earthquake. A reader is a person who reads. A cougher is a person who what? Who coughs. And a gossiper is a person who gossips. When we add ER to a word or OR, most of the time it's going to be a person who. A person who gossips.